Happy Monday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. There is Todd Erzin. There is Aaron McIntyre. We're brought to you by our friends over at BIRCH Gold, and the price of gold continues to go up. Investors are like, yeah, we're still not buying it, and we're still going to hedge. In fact, it's gone up over 40% in the last year alone. The U.S. dollar, by the way, saw Governor DeSantis sharing a chart about that this morning. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
The dollar is literally like a roller coaster on the initial the descent after the climb. Yikes. All right, so make sure you diversify now. BIRCH Gold's going to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You're not going to pay a dime out of your pocket either. Just text Steve to 989898. Claim your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. The best indicator of the future, it's the past. And gold has historically been a safe haven for millennia, so who else or what else can say that? Text Steve to 989898. Claim your free info kit on gold today by texting Steve to 989898. Protect your future today with BIRCH Gold. Text Steve to 989898. I wanted to send a shout out to Ashley Vaccaro. She made all three of us some just absolutely gorgeous glasses.
Yeah.
And drink glasses. And just wanted to make sure, the level of craftsmanship there, I just thought that deserved, a specific shout out for her. So she brought those to us when Amy and I were in D.C. for Seth Gruber's Life or Death Con over the weekend. So I wanted to thank Ashley for those. All right, coming up on the show today, we're going to have our last visit with our good friend Bob Vander Plaats for until the month of March. So we're going to have him gaze into the crystal ball of what he thinks is going to happen while he is on his annual snowbird getaway. What are some of the trend lines that are occurring right now, and where might they be when we see him again about 40 days from now? And then next hour, I have a surprise for the men of America. Todd and Aaron don't know what it is, don't have a clue, and you're all going to find out when we get to the next hour of the show. But until then, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Minnesota once again. A man by the name of Alex Pretty woke up Saturday morning in Minneapolis, intentionally went to an area of the city where agents of the Department of Homeland Security were working on immigration matters, intentionally tried to interfere with operations, intentionally resisted officers when they were trying to arrest him, and was intentionally carrying a gun the entire time. He was shot and killed by agents during the scuffle. Now's the point of the montage where we're supposed to break down the various angles and footage of the incident frame by frame and determine whether the shooting was justified or not and render a verdict. But much like Renee Good a few weeks ago, Alex Pretty should have never been where he was doing what he was trying to do, at least not in a functioning society. Except it's not a functioning society. It's Minnesota. Again, always Minnesota, or more precisely, the Twin Cities. Why? Because anti-God leftism has pretty much near hegemony from the governor to the mayors, police chiefs, down to the commie street orcs committing the novel jihad known as suicide by ICE, like Renee Good and Alex Pretty. It's all going according to plan, aided and abetted by some of the most evil people in our country who happen to be running the North Star State.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota.
And that's quite the moral equivalence there, Governor Walz. The plan, as Eric Tietzel at the Center for Renewing America pointed out over the weekend, is quite simple. Organize and conspire with media, check. Agitate, disrupt, incite, sow chaos, check. Exploit incidents that result from chaos, check. Weaponize empathy for political gain, a gargantuan fat check. Because boy howdy did we see that weaponized empathy play out over the weekend. You saw it, I saw it on Facebook and Instagram and a bit on X. Much like St. George Floyd in 2020, when the emotional manipulation machine gets turned on, the dogs return to their vomit. Here's Oklahoma Republican Governor Kevin Stitt.
What's the goal right now? Is it to deport every single non-U.S. citizen? I don't think that's what Americans want.
And here's Republican Congressman James Comer also signaling he's ready and willing to go weak in the knees.
If I were President Trump, I would almost think about, okay, if the mayor and the governor are going to put our ICE officials in harm's way, and there's a chance of losing more, innocent lives or whatever, then maybe go to another city and let the people of Minneapolis decide, do we want to continue to have all of these illegals are.
What's happening in the Twin Cities is a proxy fight for the generational, existential, and civilizational war the two Americas have been fighting in a mostly cold manner for quite some time. In this fight in the Twin Cities, the entire idea that all these commie street orcs are willing to die for is that borders are evil. It's that simple, and it's simply nihilism incarnate, fomented by sociopaths like Tim Walz.
We're not telling people to be silent, but we're not telling people to go out and cause problems. We're going to cause good trouble.
Good thing our Attorney General understands the stakes.
I do not understand these people. We sent Governor Walz a very strong letter today. We had been working on this letter. We got it out saying that he better support President Trump. He better support the men and women in law enforcement, because if he doesn't, we are.
President Trump this morning posted on Truth Social he's sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota to lead immigration enforcement operations there. And finally, the street address where Alex Pretty committed suicide by ICE, or in this case, Border Patrol, is 2614 Nicollet Avenue. There are at least 9 businesses listed at that address: Smart Therapy Center, New American Development Center, Nicollet Senior Center, the New American Development Center, United Wellness Center, African American Family Services, Millennium Health Services, Bloom Home Health, Global Interpreting Innovations. That may not seem interesting at first until you realize just a few doors down lies Lucky Stars Child Care Services, owned by the same man who owns the Quality Leering Center Nick Shirley that YouTuber told us about, one of those daycares with no kids. I'm sure there's nothing suspicious there. I'm sure it's all just coincidental, and I'm sure that there's no symbolism at all. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron, that was a fantastic effort. I mean, that was just a truly fantastic effort connecting dots there. So thank you for that and laying that out for both Todd and I as well as the audience. That was fantastic. There is nothing new. Now let me see if I can add some historical context here so that everyone within the sound of my voice can truly grasp the stakes we are playing for here. There is nothing new under the sun. Just new people under the sun who have yet to hear it. Everything we're doing right now and everything we're talking about right now, it's amplified because of social media and because of the increased balkanization of the country. But Todd and I are old enough, as are many of you, if you're Gen X or boomers, you're old enough to remember some of these fault lines before. Change Minneapolis to Moscow. Change border fight for the Soviet Union. And this looked very similar. Even the president's own daughter went to West Germany and laid down in front of nuclear weapons. Reagan inherited a country that had been in the midst of going on a second decade of capitulation to the Soviet Union. And early in his term, as he began to take them on, including a famous speech that he made in his first term where he referred to the Soviet Union as an evil empire. The kinds of interviews you just saw from Kevin Stitt and James Comer, they were happening back then too, and from people wearing his own uniform. Well, let's tone it down here. We don't want a nuclear war. We don't want to necessarily provoke the Soviets here. Point's been made. Reagan had his faults. One of the reasons why, frankly, we are having the border fight we're having today is Ronald Reagan. His second term, not as good as his first. His first term, pretty freaking incredible. And it's because he understood when it came to the Soviet Union, we were in a zero-sum game. And there was no turning back. And the worst thing to do is to rhetorically take the Soviet Union on at an existential level in the arena of ideas. And then when they push back, the other side, they're on scholarship too. They're practicing too. They've got guns too. They've got plans too. They're not just going to look at you and say, by golly, you're adorable. Golf clap. We had Hollywood stars meeting with the Soviets, meeting with Castro, standing up at award shows, just substitute nuclear weapons for ice. This looks a lot like what our childhood looked like. We were just kind of a different country back then, so this element wasn't nearly as mainstreamed as it is today, nor was it nearly as embedded in our culture as it is now, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But the framework is the same. And so are the rules. Do not step on a shibboleth of the damned unless you are going to smash it. One of my 10 commandments of political warfare, never attack what you're not willing to kill. You'll get no credit for showing restraint later on. Reagan saw it through, and the rest is history. The biggest weakness of Trump's first term, other than his personnel decisions, and I'll even give him a pass for a lot of those, because it was the first time in the modern history of the presidency we had elected a political outsider, and you do have to run a government. Yeah, I can't really excuse Omarosa and Anthony Scaramucci, right? I can't really excuse that, okay? But you do have to put people in charge. It wasn't like the Republican Party was all that eager to have Trump as its leader back in those days. But beyond that, the biggest problem and mistake Trump kept making, we've often pointed out on this show, why look at the difference in what Trump has been able to accomplish overseas compared to here at home. And you have to understand why that is. Worldview is destiny. Trump's worldview is art of the deal. There are deals to be made overseas. He knew this. He knew this from his time building hotels in places like Turkey. There's lots of people that they're more Arab than Muslim. And they were happy to make the right compromises and accommodations so they could have American girls in their harems. They could have a piece of our OnlyFans, harems. And American avarice. The problem is what we're up against here at home, there's no deal to be made. Unless we're talking terms of a surrender. This is the last outpost of Western civilization. This is all that is left of Christendom. That's all that's left. This is it. Less than 2% of France is evangelical. Most of France's Catholic churches are now mosques. It is way more likely the Church of England, once the largest Protestant church in the world, it is way more likely the Church of England will sign on to a jizya than it'll be an instrument of revival. This is it. Or as my buddy Seth Gruber likes to call it, and I just did his event in D.C. on Friday, this is the last stand. This is it. This is the last outpost of Western civilization. This is it. This is all that's left. And we don't even have all of this. We don't even really have a plurality of this. There's a lot of Republicans and a lot of people that voted for us who do not understand anything I'm telling you right now. And even more importantly, you need to understand this. They don't want to. That's why they're called normies. So what we're really talking about, 30, 35% of the country truly is at least willing to entertain what's really at stake here. Now, that's when you talk about a nation of 270 million people, that is still a lot of people. But Aragorn's list of allies are still growing thin, okay? We have a window right now to avoid sentencing our descendants, I should say, to a hot civil war by winning the cold one. But it's going to take the same kind of resolve that Reagan showed up against the entire political machine, the media, everybody. And frankly, at times, too many times in his first term, Trump would go on back then it was still Twitter. There was no Truth Social yet. He'd go on Twitter, say the kinds of things we love on outlets like this, right? And we could, promote and engage and farm the heck out of, and you guys soaked it all up because it's what we think, but then not follow through. And so the other side, then they take those talking points and use them to fire up their base. How many times did we do those shows back in those years?
Too many.
Yeah, they take our talking points. See, he's really Hitler. He's really a fascist. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. Then we would pull back and not do it. And so we would demoralize our base at the same time where we are inspiring theirs. And there were moments this weekend that I, for the first time, feared, oh no, we're going to make this mistake again. There was a lot of silence from the president and his administration yesterday during this entire meltdown. But he did bother to tell us what he thought about the new NFL kickoff rules. Then an announcement was made this morning, though, that I will say changed the tenor of what this opening monologue was going to sound like a few hours ago. The president announced, as Aaron just pointed out, that he's sending Tom Homan to Minneapolis to oversee operations there. I think we would all agree Homan has been among the best appointments that he has made.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I heard from Tom Homan and his staff myself when I met him out in Phoenix after Charlie's murder last September, his family has to stay in hiding. They're under constant, full-time surveillance in hiding because of all the credible death threats that he has received. In other words, he's got real skin in the game here. These aren't rhetorical flourishes. He's not auditioning for a job on Fox. Looking at you, Pam, who should have lost her job 5 minutes after she did the sternly worded letter meme for real on Fox News the other night. Sometimes you just can't send a woman to do a man's job. The problem is we have a dearth of real men, which is why I don't make that case very often, because we are not in an era where the men seem eager and willing and to want to do said jobs.
Correct.
Which is one of the reasons we're going to have the little surprise for you we're going to have next hour. This is one case, though. Who would you rather send to Minneapolis? Tom Homan, whose family is under constant surveillance and in hiding from death threats, or Kristi Noem, who post-50, even though she was still a beautiful woman aging gracefully, decided she needed a full makeover to look like, she could be on the cover of, Men's Quarterly or something. And that's when she wasn't doing dental commercials. I think the former, probably. Probably the former. Yeah, probably the former. We don't have a lot of those formers, though, do we? We don't have a lot of Tom Homans, do we?
No.
But this is a deployment by the president that tells me maybe we're serious this time. Because here's what cannot happen. There was a time, and I even advocated for it, in fact, there was a time for a strategy of do not waste any political capital on these blue cities. And here's what I think we need to start referring to them as: city-states. These are blue city-states. They are invading forces. They're cultural Fallujahs. The only thing about them that is remotely American is they're in this same landmass. But these blue city-states and the levels and levels of rot gut and Marxist infrastructure, the intent is to invade the country. They are traitorous regimes. The U.S. government threatened the state of Utah many years ago over the issue of polygamy. Didn't want that imported into the country. What would the previous eras have done to the cities or the states that were this far down the rabbit hole, Alice? Would have never let it got this far. Never in a million years. But we can't do anything about that. We can only do something about where we are right now. And here's where we are. These blue city-states are invading forces. They are traitorous regimes. They are literal constitutional insurgencies. They need to be treated accordingly. So there are two options. Now, the first option is one that I've advocated in the past. I just simply got this one from Jesus. Kick the dust off your sandals and move on. Let them just essentially isolate them. Don't fund them. Just let them drown on their own violations of the natural law, which is a self-enforcing mechanism. When you break the natural law, it always breaks you. Practice political patronage, which is we punish our enemies and reward our friends. If you're on the right side of history, if you're with us, if you're part of the coalition of the willing, you get the best tax rates, you get the best deals, you get the best government contracts. That's the strategy I've advocated. But that strategy is null and void now. Because once you go in, you have to see it through. Right now, it is true Minneapolis is unique. Right now, it is true there are more problems in Minneapolis than anywhere else, and for some of the reasons that Aaron brilliantly articulated in his montage a few minutes ago. But the operative phrase there now is right now. If you do what James Comer's made a congressional campaign or congressional career out of, just bloviating on Fox and then grabbing your ankles and running, has James Comer, he oversees the committee that subpoenaed the Clintons. Has he referred to them Department of Justice for defying a congressional subpoena yet?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think he has either. Meanwhile, they took one of the most listened to shows on our side and put it in prison right during the heart of the last election, Steve Bannon show, precisely for refusing to do that, right?
Yes.
So he went to prison for 6 months. The Clintons are doing whatever they currently do. Once the decision was made to go in, you have to now see it through. Right now, Minneapolis is a unique poop hole. But if Minneapolis, if we cut and run in Minneapolis, just name any blue city state now, and the word will be out. You don't have what it takes. So it's too late for what James Comer's advocating now. It's too late for that. But he's a Republican in Washington. So lacking testicles is just an anatomical certainty. To quote the great prophetess Margaret Thatcher, this is no time to get wobbly, George. I'm sorry, Donald. You have to see this through now. If you don't, your credibility is toast. And you will have this lawlessness all over the country all spring and summer long. And it won't just be, there's a reason I'm using the term city-state. It won't just be in blue states. This is this happening in rural Minnesota?
No.
No, it's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You're going to see this in Austin, Texas, for example. Because they're not like us. They have real conviction and they'll act on it. We won't risk being banned from social media or not getting invited to Thanksgiving. They're out there doing suicide by ice. Who do you think's going to win this? Gird your loins, buckle those chin straps tighter, and stand your ground. We have to see this through now. We have to go to the end now. And the end is victory. What exactly that looks like, I don't know. That's not my job. I just know that their job is to produce a victory that is somewhat sellable for me to do my job and how I inform and analyze for you. Because I'm their conduit between them and you. This is win or go home now. And to me, sending Tom Homan there indicates they understand that. I mean, did you see the statement the president put out while saying he was sending Homan there? Lacking Trump's, I mean, it's clearly Trump's voice in the way it's written, but there's no bluster there. There's no pro wrestling, we're vamping talk. This, I think it was meant to be a message of, we're sending the adults in. Let's hope that that's what happens here. There is nothing in Homan's previous service to this country and administration that would indicate otherwise. We have to win. And you need to understand now, I'm Adrian in Rocky II in the hospital bed. Win. All the analysis you're going to hear from me for the foreseeable future, whether it is complimentary or critical, will all be about one thing and one thing only. We have to win. This is pass-fail. It is win or go home. And I can't speak for all of you, but I kind of like cold civil wars when my side wins. We have to win. This is not a time for libertarian pontification. This is not a time for I'm smarter than everybody guy on X who just sits here and comments on the unibrow and I've figured out the 75th level of false flag on not any time for that now. We're basically sending the closest thing this administration has to Sherman to Atlanta. That's essentially what we're doing here. Tom Homan's the closest thing this administration has to Sherman. And Trump just said, Atlanta's a problem and you're the guy to go fix it. So on to Richmond, okay? That's essentially what he's doing. We have to now see this through. And we're all going to hang together here, Mr. Franklin once said famously, or we're all going to hang separately. If we lose on this, here is what cannot happen. And until I saw the announcement of Tom Homan this morning, I was fearful we were going to do this. We cannot afford a second generational political mistake. George W. Bush made 2 of them we may never recover from. Iraq, and I'm suspending free market principles to save the free market, the TARP. What we cannot do is take all the blowback of acting as if we clean this thing up and then not follow through and do it. That is complete and total tomfoolery, dumbassery, and cannot happen. Because we're on the receiving end of all the blowback now. Christian mommy blog social media is a black hole. Don't look. So we're on the receiving end of it now. We're in the mess now. Hold. Onward. Defeat is not an option. And we will not politically recover from it. At least in time for this cycle. You know, you can't speak in multiple cycles anymore because there's just so many events that can just occur. Who knows? But we will not recover from it in this cycle. And we'll be doing Impeach-a-Palooza all next year. We have to now see this through. So here's where all of you now come in. Everyone within the sound of my voice ought to have at least one post on all their social medias today thanking ICE, supporting ICE. Thank you for defending the borders. Looking forward to Tom Homan. And you need to push back on all your Aunt Petunias. And if you don't do that, if they buckle, don't come to me later complaining that Trump didn't do his job. Well, you didn't do yours. You're the home front. That's what we represent. I'm the message conduit from them to you. What you represent is the home front. You're responsible for the morale at home on the home front. Administration can't do that for you. And if you can't risk blowback on your Facebook page, then don't ask Trump to risk a 35% approval rating over seeing Minneapolis through. Doesn't work that way. It's government by the consent of the governed. You can't ask more of your politicians than you're willing to give yourself. We're all in now. This is the all-in moment now. They will do suicide by ICE every day that ends in Y to test the resolve. So it's not just it's no time to get wobbly Donald, it's no time to get wobbly any of y'all. We went in, we have to see it through now all the way to the end. An example is going to get made in the next couple of weeks and months in Minneapolis. It's just a matter of whether it's a good or a bad one. And an example will be made saying to LA, Austin, think of blue cities. In fact, let's go to places like Austin, blue cities in your red states. An example will be made saying your city-state can topple this presidency. Or you don't want to be the next cautionary tale here. But that's where we are. We are all in now. All in now. And I mean we. From 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue down to your avenue. We're all in now. More in a moment.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by Blaze TV, radio and podcast. Joined now by our good friend Bob Vander Plaats. Last time we're going to see him until well into the month of March. Going to be about 40 days.
Place to put a comma. Last time we're going to see him.
I just, got to build the tension. Right? But you're heading down to you and Darla heading down to your annual snowbird getaway from the Iowa winter.
We are. So we'll be in Marco Island for the month of February, and it's always a great time to balance ministry and R&R. And believe me, we do some ministry there too. So people think that we're completely on vacation. We are not. We have a lot of supporters down there. Florida is one of our peer states, so we look forward to doing ministry in the Sunshine State.
So I thought it might be fun. We've never done it this way before. You get ready to go. But maybe we should make this like an annual thing.
Okay,
all right?
we'll see.
I've got a list
it's
of...
like an annual physical? I just had that.
Well, it's, Moon River. I've got 7 trend lines that are currently going on right now.
Okay.
And I thought it might be interesting to get you on the record so that when we talk to you again in about 40 days, maybe we'll go back to these questions and your answers.
Yeah, March 2. So it's not quite that
long. And see where we are. All right? And yeah, it is going to be that long because we have that day off because we're just coming back from Israel with a 9-hour jet lag. I know you've done that trip a few times.
I have.
Yeah, we're going to need an extra day to recover from that.
So we'll talk March 9.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready to go?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, number one. And then if we have time, we'll get Todd and Aaron's take on your answers. if we have time, we'll see. All right?
They're going to score me.
All right, number one. Will Tim Walz have been arrested by the time you return?
No. Should he? Yes. Am I thrilled to see Tom Homan going to the state up north in Minnesota? Yes. It's for a host of reasons, but the Medicaid fraud in particular, at minimum, there has to be articles of impeachment brought up against this guy. I thought he was a buffoon when Kamala Harris put him on the national stage as vice president. Quite frankly, I thought that was just like a given to President Trump and J.D. Vance, just how bad this guy was. J.D. Vance took him to school. But now to see just how inept he is at leadership on every level. But no, I don't see him being arrested by the time I get back.
All right, number two. I'm going to put the over-under on total Democrats arrested. So they've arrested 3 so far, I believe, for the church storming in Minneapolis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So whether it's this or the ongoing riots or anything else happening in the country, I'm going to put the total over-under on Democrats arrested while you're gone at 5. You taking the over or the under?
I'd take the under. I don't see them having the courage to do it. I really don't. Matter of fact, I'm almost feeling hard-pressed that's going to go beyond the 3 that they've already arrested. And maybe it's just me.
Because we all know it was just 3 people that stormed that church last
exactly.
night.
Well, you take a look at Don Lemon. And if a sanctuary cannot be a safe place, a house of worship, what can be a safe place? The Democrats always talk about we need a safe zone. We need a safety place. Well, a sanctuary? Are you kidding me? That's where you believe your freedom of speech should apply. I think it should be more, but I'll take the under on it.
So then what's Tom Homan going there to do, do you believe?
I think he's there to send a message and be reinforcement to the boots on the ground there. I can't imagine if you're an ICE agent right now, that's a tough spot to be in.
So in other words, he's got to do Kristi Noem's job.
Well, but also I have Kristi Noem's back too, because I believe Kristi Noem's probably got a tough job as well. But I think Tom Homan is like, hey, the sheriff is in town now. We mean business. We are not going away. And so that's why I think Tom's going up to Minnesota.
Number 4, Trump's current approval rating, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average, is 42.8. Will it be over or under that when you come back?
Yeah, I really believe it will be over. I think the more this gets played out, the more they're going to say, listen, Darla and I have said this, we travel a lot. If you go to a Republican city, you want to be out on the streets, you want to be out at dinner, you want to do whatever, and this is the inner cities. Right now, you go to a Democrat city, there's just a big difference between Democrat city and Republican. I think people are starting to see this. Do you want law and order or do you not want law and order? Do you want an immigration process or don't you want an immigration process? A lot of the stuff he got elected on is what he's actually executing on right now.
So the one time so far this year, his approval rating has gotten a boost. And really, the one time so far in the last several months was after Maduro.
Sure.
The American people,
because they respect courage.
Strength. The American people, regardless of who's in power, will respond to what they perceive to be strength. If we don't arrest anybody, how does he look stronger 40 days from now to the American people?
Yeah.
If there's no consequences at all, how does he look stronger?
That's a really good question, because I think people are looking to see, okay, that, it's good to put Tom Homan up there, but what are you doing? Like you said, what's Tom Homan going up there for?
I mean, initially, Homan's messaging will be to counter Walz and is it Fry, the Minneapolis mayor up there.
Yeah.
And of course, Tom's going to do that with half his brain tied behind his back. And that's a good start, but that's not going to quell the level of it. One of the things we pointed out on our show, the two lesbians who were the first to try it, and the one of them that died suicide by ice at first with their own residential blockade.
Yeah.
This has permeated their water table to the point, like a lot of our people won't do bold stuff because they don't want to get in the way of their comfort.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This lesbian woman has had all of her desires affirmed by the culture. She's been granted, elite status in the culture. She's surrounded by total comfort. Her worldview's in total control of Minneapolis, right? Okay.
Yep.
And yet she was willing to risk her own life for that cause, despite those comforts. She was willing to risk them all for that, right? So I don't believe there's a single protester right now who's going to tune in to Tom Homan's superior, and I love Tom Homan, okay? But not a single one. Maybe you'll disagree. But I don't believe a single one's going to tune into Tom Homan's superior messaging to Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. That's the guy's name, right? Jacob Fry?
Yeah.
And they're going to say, well, by golly, I was going to listen to my 45,000 TikTok followers telling me that I'm a hero to sacred democracy if I go out there and give my life for the cause. But now, that was just a great 60-second quip by Tom Homan to, choose your Fox primetime host tonight.
Yeah.
You're going to take more commitment than that to stop them acting out, I think.
Well, Tom Homan going up there is probably going to elevate the acting.
I agree.
It's going to be,
if anything, I agree. I've got a bigger trophy now.
We've got the attention now.
Yeah.
And that's why I really appreciated a peer of mine, Joseph Backholm, who put on Facebook. He said, listen, ICE is in more states than Minnesota, right? Why isn't this happening in other states?
Let's see, if we fail here, it will.
Yeah.
They have a city-state everywhere. They've got an Austin in Texas. Pick a red state. They've got a city-state where they could do this. They could do this anywhere they want.
Yep.
And all those other places are looking to see right now to me, this is and to me, Homan is the closest thing we have to a Sherman. This is Lincoln calling Sherman in and saying Atlanta's a problem, go and solve it.
Yeah.
All right? And I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But we need to understand then sometimes you have to solve things the way that Sherman did.
Yeah.
Sometimes the solutions are not easy, and it's not stuff that you can just summarize in a pithy post on Facebook so no one hates your guts and your family.
So what you're saying, this is me being a former high school principal, is that you're sending Homan in to say we're not going to back down.
Yeah.
We're
correct.
We're here to stay. But then
Daddy's home is basically what you're saying.
But then what are well, you're saying now what are the consequences?
You have to have consequences.
If there's consequences, Trump's approval rating bumps up because there's strong leaders like going into Venezuela, getting Maduro. But now you're saying if I send Homan in, but now
if I'm willing to lay down my life for 1,500 TikTok followers to doxed nobody knew his name ICE agent, what is the social credit that I receive for dying in place of Tom Homan himself, the crown prince of the entire regime?
Right.
I mean, we have to understand now we're never quelling their desire. We have to defeat it.
Yeah. And our job isn't to quell their desire. I still believe, and that's why I think what you see with Trump's approval numbers, which we talked about with the question earlier, is that when you speak to red, white, and blue America, and you show the courage and you show the level of accountability that we're talking about here, his approval numbers go up. You don't show that courage and the level of accountability, then I think you're right. Then you do quell their desires, and the approval numbers will go down.
All right, number 5. Let's go local for a second. Will Trump endorse in the Iowa governor's race by the time you return?
I don't believe he will. It's not
because he's here tomorrow.
He's here tomorrow,
and they put a random date on the schedule. And there was no heads up. We have our first debate in the Iowa Republican gubernatorial primary tomorrow. Moms for Liberty is coming here to host it nationally, and out of nowhere, they post, "Hey, the president's coming to town to give a big speech."
Yeah,
right. So that's created a lot of what's he coming here to do? Right.
Yeah, and initially, I thought, listen, there's too many cues that says, he is going to endorse in the governor's race. The financial disclosure just came out. He's over there, I believe, in Switzerland at the time, trying to talk about Greenland and those things. And Susie Walz says, oh, by the way, he's coming to Des Moines as well. So right away, my spidey sense, a lot of people's spidey sense went up like, he's probably going to endorse in this governor's race. First of all, it's not his strategy usually to come to a state and to elevate somebody at that. It's more on Truth Social that he does it. But I think he has shown that he has not wanted to get into this governor's race thus far. I don't see it happening. Now, I could be wrong on this one, but I don't see it happening.
Well, now we're learning that this is an official party event tomorrow, right? You'd get into some kind of rules and legal issues if you start endorsing candidates in those kinds of settings.
Yeah, but typically, because I ran with Congressman Jim Nussle back in 2006, and when we brought Bush in, it was always under a White House official visit. That way the taxpayers are paying for it. And then any little skirt off that you have that's political, then all of a sudden that's it's not very much money at all. So I could see him doing that, but I'm not sure what he's going to gain. I think it's going to be an official visit.
All right, 2 more. Will there be any more church stormings like we just saw in Minneapolis?
I don't believe so. Because one is, I don't think that went over well at any level. I don't think it even went over all that well in the TikTok world. I know they got a lot of video, that kind of stuff, but there's Americans are saying, listen, that's a house of worship. Even when you watch old Westerns, where did they go to hide? They went to the sanctuary. Why? That's a house of worship. I think there's some things that are off limits and off grounds. I don't think there will be. And I think if there is, it'll be at their agenda's demise or peril.
Finally, will any more blue states, I'm starting to call them city states.
Sure.
To use a phrase from antiquity. Will any more of these blue city states attempt to emulate the lawlessness of Minnesota/Minneapolis? Or is that place just uniquely overrun by Marxists?
There's something going on in Minnesota. It's like that place just can't be tamped down at all. I think if you were going to see that like in Oregon, Portland, start doing it, I think you would have seen it already by now. I don't think they're going to try to get into this realm. I think they're going to leave this up to Minnesota and Minneapolis. And I think right now Minnesota and Minneapolis are too far in to say we're going to back down. And that's why Homan's going in saying you better back down.
All right, slap those headphones on. We got about 5 minutes here for Todd and Aaron to give us a little review of the answers that you gave as well as the questions I asked. Gentlemen, what do you think?
I'll just go back to the beginning about Tim Walz. He's inept if you view him as a leader, but he's not actually a leader. If you know your Hogan's Heroes, he's a very, very loyal Colonel Klink. I know nothing, I see nothing, but he actually knows his connections to China, how many visits over there. We know Bill Clinton's. There's a reason Bill Clinton and Obama and Bill Clinton just got subpoenaed instead of laying low for a while, keeping his powder dry. No, they're out there defending Tim Walz because there is a nexus of power, money, manipulation, and going on, but that probably goes all the way to the Chinese. And that's the reason why people need to think bigger. This isn't just crazy Tim Walz and crazy Minneapolis and what's going on up there. I believe this is a nexus of power, and he is a loyal Marxist, and that's why there's no excuse for not arresting somebody. Otherwise, they absolutely have the plan in play to win. It's an all-in moment. I totally agree with Steve on that.
Yeah. There's no doubt there's a nexus of power. Matter of fact, that's how he got to be the vice president nominee as well.
Yes, exactly.
Because Shapiro out of Pennsylvania, everybody knew he was the best candidate to help Kamala Harris go over the finish line, but they wanted their own who would carry the water for them.
Yes.
And that's Tim Walz. And that's exactly right why you see Obama and Clinton having his back right now.
So this happened, I believe, just as we were coming on the air. President Trump posted on Truth Social, Governor Tim Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call, and we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength, President Trump says. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him and that we are looking for any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The governor very respectfully understood that, and I will be speaking to him in the near future. He was happy that Tom Homan was going to Minnesota, and so am I. We've had such tremendous success in Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana, and virtually every place we have touched, and even in Minnesota, crime is way down. But both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. That's the quote from Truth Social from President Trump. Now, this is being already cast as Walz backing down. I'm not sure what to make of it. I think the coming days will tell that and answer that question. I will say, however, it is Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, even their police chief in Minneapolis. They are the ones who are fomenting this.
Correct.
What is the motivation for that? Whether or not it's a convenient distraction, whether or not they're actually all in on trying to win a political war. I don't really care what the motivation is. They are doing this on purpose. They are fomenting this on purpose. Whether it's to cover up, distract from the fraud, I don't know. There has to be accountability. Something, if he is not facing some sort of investigation, and they were already subpoenaed last week, we heard, there has to be accountability. If he is not arrested and this continues to go on, that's just going to be an L. I can't spin it any other way than that. So there better not be any backing down whatsoever. There cannot be any backing down in Minnesota. This is a zero-sum this is a zero-sum game, unfortunately. And I wish it weren't so. If we had a functioning social compact, it wouldn't be a zero-sum game. But that's what this has turned into. It's not my first choice, but that's what it is.
Well, Aaron, to let me respond to you real quick. First of all, that Truth Social that you read by Trump, to me, that's a win for Trump. That's a cave for Walz. The cave from Walz might be because he really believes he could get arrested. And so, therefore, either you're going to work this
Well, there's
thing,
another element here in that a whole bunch of major businesses in Minneapolis have put out a statement since last night saying, which they would have never done with the Floyd stuff 5 years ago, saying that this is not good and you guys need to figure this out.
You need to get this under control.
Yeah, so he's got a little bit of domestic pushback. How serious those businesses are, I have no idea. That's way more domestic pushback than happened there with the summer of Floyd 5 years ago, though.
You know, the other lens to put on is, remember ICE. When people are watching this, ICE is about immigration enforcement, right? The very words is about immigration and enforcement. The word Governor Walz, where Frey, where the police chief play a role, is if they worked in connection with the local law enforcement. Local law enforcement is trained in crowd control. How do you tamp down a situation? That's not ICE's training. ICE's training is enforcement. And so by not allowing them to work with ICE, you put your own citizens at risk.
Good stuff, my friend.
Good to see you guys.
Yep, we'll see you in about, 6 weeks, 7 weeks?
Hopefully have a tan.
We'll come back. I got a surprise for the men of America here next. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube, at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you are a podcast listener, thank you. And we would be very grateful if you would leave us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have. We appreciate each and every one. We'd appreciate it if you added yours as well. And you can also make sure to hit subscribe or on Apple iTunes follow. And that's how you're going to know for sure that every time we do a new episode of this show, it shows up in your podcast feed every single time. And this part of the show brought to you by our friends at Jace Medical. As we're fighting for freedoms, let's not overlook medical freedom, the freedom to make our own medical decisions, to do our own research, the freedom to know what is best for our bodies. You might recall things like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, that in the case of hydroxychloroquine, decades. In the case of ivermectin, just in the previous 5 years before COVID, they gave it a Nobel Prize for all the lives it saved. And then they got to be too dangerous. Then it got to be horse paste. Right at the time maybe we needed them the most. That's when Jace Medical came on board. And they don't just offer ivermectin. They have 6 different types of it, in fact. From topicals to compounds and to just ivermectin by itself. It's easy to get it prescribed and delivered to you, as well as all of their other preparedness solutions they have available to you from our friends at Jace Medical. All right. So go to jace.com, Jase, Jase for jace.com. Enter the promo code DACE at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code DEACE at jase.com. Again, promo code DACE for the discount at jace.com. So normally we would do an Ask Me Anything here, but I think given where we are now and the events of this past weekend, I think we need to have a powwow. And I think the men of America, and that's who you are. Minneapolis is a city-state. It's not an American city. Many of these states are not American. There's left America, and then there's what's left of America. These cultures cannot share a country, and they will not. I promise you, they will not. We're going to get into that in the overtime today. Our colleague Keith Malinek posted. That's tomorrow for idolatry or not. Our colleague Keith Malinek posted a poll yesterday. Hey, we just celebrated our 250th together. How many more are we going to celebrate? I thought that was a fascinating question. We're going to discuss that tomorrow on the show. But these two worldviews aren't going to share a country indefinitely. They're barely sharing it now. When we're in an era, we all saw how many teachers were anxious to show you their ghoulish glee over Charlie's murder last September. Think of all those people that got exposed by libs of TikTok and everybody else online. What group of people were exposed as being a part of that macabre madness more than any other? Government school teachers were. There's a video going around today, again, courtesy of libs of TikTok, of a surgeon saying that if you voted for Trump, don't count on him to help you. I hope you understand how late in the game it is. That there is a movement of people in America who cannot wait to out themselves for being ghouls. And they do so knowing that there's a throng of those on social media who will cheer them on as they do so. The hour, folks, I am telling you, it is way later than we think it is. Way later. It just seemed as if the North and the South would just indefinitely have this fight over slavery, and it would never come to a head. Then one day some shots are fired at Fort Sumter, and it did. It just seemed like those northern 10 tribes that broke away on their own, built their own temple, did their own worship, violated every morsel of Moses' law. It just seemed like they were just going to kind of just do this indefinitely. Until one day the Assyrians showed up and put bits in their noses and chained them and drove them back to their homeland, and then, of course, raped their women and children to death and took over their lands. And then it was over. And that wasn't going to happen indefinitely. And then you would think the southern kingdoms would, having witnessed that, would have learned a lesson. They didn't. In fact, they barely lasted another century. And they went down to this place called Tophet, is what Jeremiah the prophet calls it. It's a Hebrew word for hell. It's the valley of Ben Hinnom. And they went down there and they beat the drums and threw their babies into the fire for Molech. And then God had a belt. He took it off. The buckle said Nebuchadnezzar on it. And the punishment for this was so drastic that during the siege of Jerusalem, they drank their own urine and ate their own filth. And mothers conspired with one another about who was going to kill their child for food and which day of the week it would be. Yeah, we always think we're going to get away with it. But we never do. And we always think we're going to get away with it until we don't. And I know right now there's way more searches on Google for the Super Bowl matchup than the guy who tried to commit and successfully did commit suicide by ice over the weekend in Minneapolis. And it just seems like, it's going to be Chucklehead forever. There really won't be a reckoning. It'll just exist in this perpetuity, this kind of standoff. It's just too much money. We're all making too much money. We're just going to do this indefinitely. No, we won't. That's never how this ends. Otherwise, the encyclopedias that we read as a kid, the Wikipedias that our kids read today, they'd be a lot shorter than they are. A lot of entries on those websites, a lot of pages in those tomes. Why? Because we never get away with it, and it never goes on indefinitely. And it's always right when we think we're going to get away with it indefinitely that we don't, almost every single time. So I've prepared a surprise for the men of America today. We have reached the limit of what we can ask of our women, and frankly, we've already asked too much of them. As a general rule, women are just wired differently. They have different primary callings than we do. And what got me to thinking about this was watching people like our colleague Ali Stuckey and others try to put out all these fires as Christian mommy social media had a complete and total meltdown over the weekend. And did everything but offer up their own homes for illegal aliens to make it stop. Now, here's the thing, though. That's why there's a complementarian aspect of the sexes. And sometimes mommy needs to step in and say, hey, you need to go cool down and come back and talk to the kids when you have composure. And sometimes daddy needs to say, baby, I love you, but this is not your time, it's mine. And you need to get out of the way and let me do the job God called me to do. So that we're not bailing this one out from a jail cell in a couple of years or months or weeks. Which time do you guys think we're in right now, do you think?
The latter.
Probably not. Now, there are times we would be in the former. There's certainly a time when there's a time for the former.
Yeah.
Of course. This would not be one of those times. Would not be. Would not be. We've asked way too much of the women already. And the fact that we even have a subculture called Christian mommy social media, but there's no Christian dad social media subculture, is indicative of all the problems we currently have. I was reading last night the level of coordination that went into the storming of that church in Minneapolis. Plans that have plans. And then I thought again about all those men, all of them. And by the way, you know what they did to St. Nicholas after he got up and pimp slapped Arius like the hoe he was? They put him in a jail cell overnight, by the way, to cool down. They did. I mean, Emperor Constantine himself had to basically go and get him out, pull rank to get him out of there. They have layers of infrastructure to storm and invade our churches. And there wasn't a single man at that church, not a single one, who lost his cool and composure and just put somebody right on their ass. And then maybe later on had to say, hey, that's just not how we do things here. Get the instinct, okay? But nobody did. Nobody. Women and children. I mean, the story. Did you guys read the story? They had him trapped like in a stairwell, wouldn't let him out.
Yeah.
I did.
That's from the official government.
I know.
Documents.
There wasn't a group of dads, even two of them, who just said, listen, we're going in there together, man. This can't happen.
I'm not surprised at all.
Nothing.
I'm not
Nothing
surprised.
blows my mind.
Doesn't blow my mind at all.
So I have a surprise for y'all today. I'm going to appeal to the highest authority, I believe, on this planet. And I'm going to let the lion out of its cage. You know, we had this thing on Friday where a guy does his own apologetics ministry. Sent us a note, right? And we even discussed it, I think, on the show, didn't we?
Yeah.
About doing Nehemiah.
Yeah.
As a study for men. We even I think we sent a couple texts amongst each other yesterday about how this may look if we decide to do it later this year.
Right.
Right. I got a lot of notes from folks asking me to do that. You sure? You sure you really want me to do that? You sure? Let's find out. Because I have here in front of me the 13th and final chapter of the book of Nehemiah. Theologians estimate Nehemiah he's certainly an elderly man as he writes these words, which in that culture you're probably looking at somewhere, Todd, between you and I's age and his early 60s, or Bob's age, right? So this would be senior status in an ancient culture without antibiotics and running water and, pestilences and everything else we don't have to deal with today. He's gone home to Susa. You remember at the beginning of the book of Nehemiah. He is serving as a tester for the king of Persia, who grants him not just permission, but the resources to go back and rebuild the walls of the once great city of Jerusalem. He's completed that work. They have completed Zerubbabel's temple. Ezra has come and dedicated it. He goes back home. He has to now finish the commitment that he gave to the king to finish off his time as a servant. And then he gets word. We don't know exactly how long he's been gone. Estimates are anywhere from a couple of months he's been gone and back in Susa to a couple of years. So it wasn't that long. And he gets word that the whole thing has gone to crap already. Already. The whole thing's gone to crap already. And so now Nehemiah, an elderly man now, returns. And he didn't have a lot of Hebrews to give if you've read the first 12 chapters of Nehemiah. Not a lot of Hebrews to give. Not a lot, man. Not a lot. So what do you think the 13th and final chapter looks like when he's out of Hebrews to give? It looks like this. On that day, they read from the book of Moses in the hearing of the people. Book of Moses usually means the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible written by Moses himself. Could even mean a specific book of the Bible like Deuteronomy. And in it was found written that no Ammonite or Moabite should ever enter the assembly of God. Now, who are the Ammonites and the Moabites? Well, the harshest punishment after the flood that God has laid down on the earth is what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. He essentially nuked them from orbit. That's essentially what he did. Lot as the nephew of Abraham is permitted to flee with his wife and children, while the rest of the communities are nuked from orbit, incinerated, for their depravity and blasphemy. As the angels are leading them to freedom, they are only given one instruction: do not look back. Lot's wife, of course, doesn't obey. She is turned into a pillar of salt. Now keep in mind, Lot's family has no idea this is not some kind of a global event. They don't know. And so it is Lot and 2 unmarried daughters, and they're out in the middle of nowhere alone. The daughters aren't sure there's any men left to marry them, to perpetuate the family name, let alone stop them from getting sold into prostitution. So they get Pops drunk one night and have him impregnate them. The 2 children that are conceived that evening, in a complete and total display of moral depravity, are the nations that go on to become the Ammonites and the Moabites. In other words, Lot took the grace of God, Lot and his daughters did, and they defiled it. They defiled the grace of God. And these 2 nations would become thorns in the side of the Jewish people throughout antiquity. They are banned from the assembly, with one exception. They have to be willing to denounce their previous citizenship and convert to Judaism. This is where the book of Ruth comes in. A lot of you read, we did it at my wedding. Read the book of Ruth, the verse, your people will be my people, your God will be my God. That is Ruth setting aside her status as a Moabitess and becoming a Jew. In other words, for her to immigrate to Israel, there's no squatters' rights. There's no little Moab. There's no little Ammon. She has to fully immerse down to even religious observance. And it was found written that no Ammonite or Moabite should ever enter the assembly of God, for they did not meet the people of Israel with bread and water, but hired Balaam against them to curse them. It's a story in the book of Genesis. A prophet is hired, a demonic prophet is hired to curse the Jewish people. The problem is God steps in and gives him other things to prophesy and curse instead. As soon as the people heard the law, they separated from Israel all those of foreign descent. I want you to go and ask your pastor, who's nicer than God in a sweater vest. Somebody I know was telling me they met with one of the elders at their church this weekend about this. And one of the elders in their church, in one of the most read places in America, said, "This place is becoming like Nazi Germany." That guy served in Iraq, by the way. Again, I'd love to say you can't send a woman to do a man's job, but we don't have a lot of men these days. So as soon as they heard the book of the law, they separated from Israel all those of foreign descent, which means they'd done this once already. There were mass deportations already when Nehemiah was here the first time. They had to do it again. They had gone right back to foreign gods and foreign cultures in violation of their own all over again. In just a matter of months, maybe a couple of years. Now, before this, Eliashib the priest, who was appointed over the chambers of the house of God and who was related to Tobiah. Now, that's a name that figures very prominently in the book of Nehemiah. Earlier in the book of Nehemiah, 2 men show up. One named Tobiah, another named Sanballat, pagans. And their entire goal is to stop the rebuilding of the city walls and the reforming of the Jewish civilization. This is the same Tobiah, the same one. And he's back again. He was given a large chamber within the temple. They made him a bedroom. They gave him an apartment. Where previously they had grain offerings for God, the frankincense, the vessels, and the tithes of grain, wine, and oil for God, which were given by commandment to the Levites, singers, and gatekeepers, and the contributions for the priests. They gave that space to the very pagan traitor who tried to stop them from rebuilding their legacy and heritage in the first place. They gave him an apartment in God's house. That's what they did. While this was taking place, I was not in Jerusalem, for in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, I went to the king. At this time, Babylon has been conquered by the Persians. And after some time, I asked leave of him, and I came to Jerusalem and then discovered the evil that Eliashib had done to Tobiah, or for Tobiah. Should have done evil to him. It would have been called good. But he did stuff for him. That's why it was evil. Preparing for him a chamber in the courts in the house of God, they built an apartment for literally an agent of hell. They gave him an apartment in God's house. That's what they literally did here. Now, what do you think is the proper reaction to this? I have no comment. I have no comment. You should be ashamed. This is a house of worship. You should be ashamed. We're just here to worship Jesus. Everybody lay low here and turn the other cheek. That is not the reaction, surprisingly enough. What comes next will blow the minds of at least 90% of American churchgoers. Blow their minds. Blow their minds. Nehemiah, maybe over 60 years old, which is a very old man in this period of time in human history. After hearing this news, that the very man who had threatened him and his fellow Jews for attempting to rebuild the walls of the city and dedicate God's house was given an apartment in God's house. And I was very angry. 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 And I threw all the household furniture of Tobiah out of the chamber. We know this today as an eviction. Then I gave orders, and they cleansed the chambers, and I brought back there the vessels of the house of God with the grain offering and the frankincense. I also found out that the portions of the Levites, in other words, this is how they eat. This is how they have families. They're supported by the people in exchange for being their redemptive representatives before God. Except they had not been given the offerings owed to them for doing the ministry. So the Levites and the singers who did the work had fled to their own fields. They got to feed their families. They're not being fed. So they had to flee to go into just common labor. So I decided to get all the church growth consultants together, and we prayed about it. We even wrote a sternly worded letter. No! This is the word of God. You're not better than this. You're not nicer than this. This is the only perfect thing on the earth. This is the word of the only undefeated being in all the universe. And it says, and I quote, So I confronted the officials and said, Why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their stations. Then all Judah brought the tithe of the grain, wine, and oil into the storehouses. And I appointed as treasurers over the storehouses Shemaliah the priest, Zadok the scribe, and Pedaiah of the Levites, and as their assistant Hanan the son of Zachar, son of Mattaniah, or Zakur the son of Mattaniah, for they were considered reliable. Not nice. Not hope-filled. Reliable. Faithful. And their duty And their duty was to distribute to their brothers. Remember me, oh my God, concerning this, and do not wipe out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God and for his service. What were those good deeds? I evicted. I got angry. I acted. I confronted. In those days, I saw in Judah people treading wine presses on the Sabbath and bringing in heaps of grain and loading them on donkeys, and also wine, grapes, figs, and all kinds of loads, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And is any of this life? Is this life or death? Are they performing emergency medical care here? No. This is just common marketplace activity. And I warned them. And I warned them. You ever been warned by a priest? You ever been warned by your pastor? You ever been confronted? How about a dad? Anybody? And I warned them on the day when they sold food. Tyrians also, who lived in the city, brought in fish. Pagan foreigners. Tyre and Sidon, twin cities. Who came from Sidon? Who was Sidonian? Jezebel. They were living in the city, conducting all these goods and selling them on the Sabbath to the people of Judah in Jerusalem itself with an exclamation point. He's incensed. He can't even believe this. He can't believe it's gotten to this point. Then I confronted. Then I confronted. Then I confronted. Then I confronted. You know, I used to joke on this show, we need a Dads for Liberty. I'm wrong. We need a Dads for Confrontation. That's actually what we need. We need a Dads for Confrontation. And the fear of that should be so resounding that they would prefer to deal with Moms for Liberty instead. For fear of what will happen when Dads for Confrontation show up. But folks, we haven't even gotten to the best parts of this yet. Oh, this is going to preach loud and clear and painfully. Next.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Chirp. Let's be honest, this is about the time of the month of January now that we're starting to maybe go wobbly on those New Year's resolutions, especially when it comes to staying active, getting healthier, because your body does start rebelling against you. I mean, that the tension in those muscles, the atrophy in those muscles, the soreness there as well, right? You have to break through. Just like we were talking about right now, we're at the stage of Minneapolis now that we have to see it through to the end. I mean, if you were going to go hard for the first couple weeks and then start up all that soreness and pain, quitting now is foolish because you just wasted your time. Should have never started in the first place. But I've been where you are, so I get how it can get hard. And this is where having preventative health at your disposal, there's no way I'd have been able to maintain what it took to not be 400 pounds anymore, except for my friend Jake, who was on the cutting edge back in the day of preventative health. Thankfully, now with a company like Chirp, this stuff is way more available to you than ever before to make sure your body recovers faster, that you can be stronger and more active than you've ever been before. Whether it is stuff you can do at home, like the Chirp Contour, it's professional grade relief in the comfort of your own home. It combines spinal decompression, soothing massage, relaxing heat to ease pressure, personalized presets. You've got that. There's things you can take with you. I take the Chirp rolling power massager with me when I travel for some of those trouble spots as well, particularly sleeping in hotel beds. Or, trigger point rollouts. They've got a ton of those. Those are going to be your friend, I'm telling you. All right, so check out the full menu of what they've got for you when you go to gochirp.com/Steve. That's gochirp.com/Steve, CHIRP for chirp, like birdie chirp. Gochirp.com/Steve. I'm just, like Todd, you said during the break, I'm just reading the Bible. That's all I'm doing here. It's right there. It's right in here. So let's continue on with the section the Bible refers to as, quote, Nehemiah's final reforms. I love that. These are his reforms. Then I confronted the nobles of Judah, and I said to them, what is this evil thing that you are doing, profaning the Sabbath day? He didn't say, well, I'm just wondering, what do you guys got going on here? How does that make you feel? I don't want to judge. Nope. Then I confronted the nobles of Judah, and I said to them, what is this evil thing that you are doing, profaning the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers act in this way? And did not our God bring all this disaster on us and on this city as a result? Now you are bringing more wrath on Israel by profaning the Sabbath as well. As soon as it began to grow dark at the gates of Jerusalem before the Sabbath, I commanded that the doors should be shut and gave orders that they should not be opened until after the Sabbath. In other words, he's enforcing God's law, enforcing it. It's not an idea. It's not a stipulation. He's enforcing it. And I stationed, and just to further enforce it, I stationed some of my servants at the gates that no load might be brought in on the Sabbath day. Who was bringing in the loads? The pagans were. They were bringing them in to sell to the Jews. And the merchants and sellers of all kinds of wares lodged outside Jerusalem once or twice. But since they were pagans, it was none of my business. That's not what happened. Nehemiah writing again, but I warned them. And I said to them, but I warned them, and I warned them, and I warned them. You can't come in here and desecrate holy ground. Trap our children and women in a stairwell. I'm sorry, different context. Back to the text. But I warned them. Why do you lodge outside the wall? If you do so again, I will blog. I will pray that you will go away. I will send you a sternly worded letter. I'm just reading the word of God, guys. If you do so again, I will lay hands on you. And this isn't an anointing prayer. No, it's not what he meant. From that time on, they did not come on the Sabbath. Message had been sent. And based on his previous actions, they just knew he was likely to follow through. The kids today call that street cred. Then I commanded the Levites. The amount of action verbs in here is just truly dizzying. Then I commanded the Levites that they should purify themselves and come and guard the gates to keep the Sabbath day holy. And then for this very bold, provocative, confrontational gesture, Nehemiah has the chutzpah to then say, and I quote, remember this also in my favor, O my God, and spare me according to the greatness of your steadfast love. This is not very seeker-friendly. In those days, I also saw the Jews who had married women of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. Ashdod, the Philistines. That was their capital. You know, like Goliath. The Philistines, the age-old enemies of the Jews. Maybe their greatest enemies. Nehemiah then says this, half of the Jewish children spoke the language of Ashdod, and they could not speak their own. The language of our greatest enemies, and they could not speak their own. At that time, I realized that we were going to need a DEI program and diversity sensitivity training. No, that's not what he says. That's not what happens next. It's not what happens next. And I confronted them. There's that word again. And I confronted them. And I confronted them. And I cursed them. And I beat some of them and pulled out their hair. That is a gesture of emasculation in the ancient world. And I made them take an oath in the name of God, saying, you shall not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons or for yourselves. You will not follow after these foreign gods anymore. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin on account of such women? Among the many nations there was no king like him, and he was beloved by his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, foreign women made him to sin. Shall we then listen to you and do all this great evil and act treacherously against our God by marrying these same foreign women? And one of the sons of Jehoiada, the son of Eliashib the high priest, was the son-in-law of Sanballat the Horonite. There's those two names again. These two guys would have been fine if every Jew that tried to rebuild that wall were dead. Now they've got VIP status. Therefore, I pleaded with him to do better. No. Therefore, I chased him from me. And then how about this? Remember them, oh my God, because they have desecrated the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood of the Levites. He imprecatory curses them. Thus I cleansed them from everything foreign and established the duties of the priests and Levites, each in his work. And I provided for the wood offering at appointed times and for the first fruits. And then this is the last line from Nehemiah. After he has confronted and confronted and confronted and commanded and commanded and commanded, he has chased, he has evicted, he has assaulted, he has threatened. Are these not all terms and words that have all been used here?
Yep.
Right here in the Word of God. In the end, he says, I pray I did not go too far, my Lord. No. That's not what he says. Remember me, oh my God, for good. Those are his last words. Preserved for all of eternity in the most potent weapon ever forged in the history of human existence. The only perfect thing on this planet, the Word of God. Now, is this language and these sorts of reactions and responses prevalent throughout the Word of God? No. But are they present in the Word of God? Yes. Were there moments with your own children you had to command and confront, chase and punish? Yes. And the hope is by doing so in those rare moments, they would be rare. And the rest of those moments would be mercy triumphs over judgment. We can debate whether or not we are at such moments as a culture right now. I am open to that debate. But what is not debatable and what we are not prepared to admit is that such moments exist. Whether we're currently at said moment or not, open to debate. What is not open to debate is that such moments do exist. I would submit thugs invading your sanctuary to desecrate it, defile it, and literally scare the hell into your women and children would be such a moment. Maybe it's not. We should at least be having conversations and preparing For then, what is? What is? By the way, the next time this planet sees our Lord, the next time they see him, how will he come? It's going to look a lot more like what Nehemiah described here than what happened the first time. The first time he came in humility and offered grace. The second time, he will come in the fullness of his power and authority and separate the wheat from the chaff and the sheep from the goats and cast his enemies into the lake of fire. Still sure you want me to go through Nehemiah with you this summer? The fact that this is preserved in the Word of God indicates that there are times and places for such actions. Now, one thing you'll notice, these actions are all defensive in nature, and they're all from the desecration of holy ground, or that which has been set apart for God. Nehemiah doesn't go house to house looking at people's individual sins. Nehemiah himself is a sinner. And we love our neighbor as we love ourselves. But this does not belong to you. This belongs to God. You are not entitled to this. And we render under Caesar that which is Caesar's, or the world's. And we render under God that which is God's. And it is when the world tried to claim that which is God's and refused to take no for an answer that such actions are required. Again, we can all debate whether or not we are at such a moment. What is not debatable, though, is that such moments do exist. Gentlemen, we got about 3.5 minutes. I'll give you guys the time.
Well, remember, most of those who were in exile in Persia and had the opportunity to go back didn't. They were happy for various reasons right where they were.
Go back to Israel, you mean?
Go back to, yeah. And even amongst those who did, obviously they went back kind of nostalgically, but they clear the reading of Nehemiah means they didn't really go back. It's like, oh, wow, this is a little bit more than I bargained for. And that's because if you understand why if you've read C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. And he just talks about so many people want a little bit of hell with their heaven. And it comes in all different shapes and sizes, but that's where we're at. There are just a bunch of idols that we love, and we aren't prepared to take heaven unless we can take those with us. And that's why you think just reading that was challenging. Now do the real life application to this day and age. What are our idols? What are we willing or unwilling to give up? Because when the Lord comes back like that, it's as likely that he's going to come back on Super Bowl Sunday as any place else as we celebrate transgenderism. We really want to have that discussion? Steve's right. Do we?
So I brought up the notion, I think a couple of weeks ago on the Deace group. You can live hard and free in Siberia. It's easier to live free in Siberia than it might be in a flat in the United Kingdom or certain locales around even this country. The bottom line, though, if you live in a country like this, if you live in a suburb or exurb or in an urban area, You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's a call to all of us. That's part of what it means to die daily, in my estimation. On no level are we allowed to live a life where we are just merely a speed bump at best to the forces of hell. And that starts with a willingness and a display of being uncomfortable of confrontation. That's the bottom line. Do we really care that much about what aunt fill in the blank or cousin fill in the blank or nephew fill in the blank really thinks? Do we really care that much about it? Or are we just cowards? That's the bottom line. That's the choice.
Amen. We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.